Some criminal cases are defined by what actually happened. Others are defined by what almost happened and the uncomfortable legal questions left behind. This story sits in that unsettling grey area. It's the true case of a New York City police officer whose secret online life sparked fear, controversy, and a national debate about where fantasy ends and criminal intent begins. Jen, this is the case of Gilberto Valle, a story often remembered by one chilling nickname, the Cannibal Cop, disclaimer. This video discusses disturbing criminal themes. No graphic details are included. Viewer discretion is advised. This content is presented for educational and documentary purposes only. No, Gilberto Valle was Arshabati years old and living in Queens, New York. By all outward appearances, his life was stable. He worked as an officer with the New York Police Department, was recently married, and had a young child. Condemned to friends, family, and co-workers, Valle appeared quiet and unremarkable. But privately, he was struggling with dark and disturbing fantasies, violent thoughts involving kidnapping, murder, and cannibalism. For years, these thoughts stayed locked inside his mind. Valle understood how disturbing they were, and he told no one. Blunt. That changed when he turned to the internet. Valle began visiting obscure online forums and private chat rooms dedicated to extreme fantasy roleplay. Inside these spaces, users shared fictional scenarios involving violence and control. For the first time, Valle felt understood, meant he wasn't alone anymore. Encouraged by the attention and validation, Valle became increasingly active. His messages grew longer, more detailed, and more personalized. What began as abstract fantasy soon included fictional scenarios involving women he knew in real life. And most troubling of all, some of these scenarios involved his own wife, Kathleen, who had no knowledge of his online activity. Over time, Valle's behavior escalated beyond casual conversation. He began writing structured, step-by-step fictional scenarios describing how women could be abducted and killed. These writings were shared privately with people he met online. One of those people, Valle believed, was another individual who shared his interests. In reality, that person using the name Michael was an undercover FBI agent. During these conversations, Valle discussed offering a woman for kidnapping in exchange for money. A price was mentioned. However, no meeting was arranged, no payment was exchanged, and no abduction occurred. Still, the language used in these conversations alarmed investigators. Once it was discovered, the most serious turning point came when Valle used his position, as a police officer, to gather information through his NYPD access. He logged into the National Crime Information Center NSIC database, an internal law enforcement system meant strictly for official use. There, he searched for personal information on dozens of women whose names appeared in his online fantasies. According to court records, Valle accessed details including address, photographs, and background information. In total, investigators later identified over Basher's unauthorized searches. Using this information, Valle wrote fictional documents outlining hypothetical abduction scenarios, which he shared online as fantasy material. Despite the disturbing nature of these writings, there was still one critical fact. No one had been harmed. No real-world steps such as surveillance, travel, or attempted contact. And for a time, no one in Valle's real life knew any of this was happening. That changed when Valle's wife, Kathleen, noticed something unusual. She observed that her husband frequently deleted his browser history and appeared overly secretive with his computer. At first, she suspected an affair. Wanting answers, she installed monitoring software on their home computer. What she discovered was far worse than she imagined. Kathleen found online chat logs, disturbing search histories, and saved images connected to violent fantasy discussions. Some of the content referenced her directly, as well as her friends and other women. Terrified, she contacted authorities. In October, Gilberto Valle was arrested. Federal prosecutors charged Valle with multiple offenses, including, conspiracy to kidnap, illegal access of a federal database, misuse of law enforcement systems. The case quickly drew national attention. Media coverage focused heavily on the disturbing nature of Valle's writings, raising fears about whether he would have eventually acted on them. Prosecutors argued that Valle's access to real names, addresses, and law enforcement tools showed preparation, not imagination. Defense argued something very different. Valle went on trial in federal court. His attorneys maintained that everything he wrote and discussed online was fantasy role play, protected eyes that Valle never attempted to meet a victim, never conducted surveillance, never acquired weapons, and never took physical steps toward harming anyone. The jury initially disagreed. Valle was found guilty of conspiracy to kidnap and sentenced to prison. He served approximately 3 months behind bars, but the case was far from over. Appeals for the Second Circuit reviewed the conviction. In a controversial decision, the court overturned Valle's conspiracy conviction. The judges ruled that while his thoughts and writings were deeply disturbing, the prosecution failed to prove criminal intent beyond fantasy. The court emphasized a critical legal standard. Thoughts, speech, and fantasies, no matter how disturbing, do not become crimes unless paired with clear, real-world action. Valle's conviction for database misuse stood, but his prison sentence was vacated. He was released later that year. Since his release, Gilberto Valle has largely avoided public attention. Reports later confirmed that he turned to writing fiction, publishing extreme horror novels centered on dark psychological themes. The women whose information he accessed were never harmed, but the emotional impact of the case remains difficult to measure. To this day, the case divides public opinion. Some believe Valle was a dangerous individual, stopped just in time. Others see the case as a troubling example of how close the justice system came to punishing thoughts instead of actions. The story of Gilberto Valle leaves us with a deeply uncomfortable question. Should the line be drawn between imagination and intent? The law can punish actions, but it struggles with what exists only in the mind. And sometimes the most unsettling cases aren't defined by violence, but by how close they turn real.